this is Amy Alton of doomandbloom.net. I am a nurse practitioner and also co-author of the Survival Medicine Handbook. Now let's move into what our topic is. Today we're going to discuss SWAT-T tourniquets. Now this looks a little funky because I've actually opened this, and I will show you how I opened that in a little while. But first of all, the SWAT-T tourniquet was invented by an Army doctor, and I think that's kind of important because a lot of you out there listening are military, current or ex, and I think it really means something to you that somebody who is in your field was the inventor of this particular tourniquet. So it gives it a little credence. There's been a lot of research that has been done, and it has been shown to be effective. I'll show you in a little while a one-handed and also a two-handed application on my husband, DrBones. So what does SWAT stand for? It actually is interesting because the name of the tourniquet is on the tourniquet, and again I'll be showing you this a little bit closer so you can see it up close. It says stretch, wrap, and tuck. That is the name of the tourniquet, SWAT, stretch, wrap, and tuck. Okay, here's a close-up of the SWAT tourniquet. You can see the words stretch, wrap, and tuck are on there, which are your instructions. We'll show you how to use that in just a second. I also want you to go ahead and look up closely at the oval that is supposed to be, see the arrow turned into a circle. So I'm gonna pull this real tight and make that into a circle. You see how that oval right there changed into a circle. Got to pull up really hard. And the other part of the instructions that are actually on the tourniquet is the rectangle turning into a square. So I'm going to show you, look at the rectangles up here. We're going to pull it really tight, and we're going to turn those rectangles into squares. Wow, you got to pull really tight for that. I also want to show you the package up close. It's just a really lightweight package. It actually has a lot of notches in several different areas, so it would make it easy for you to tear it open. And that's important when you're in a stressful situation and you really need to get this open. Another thing you can do is twist and snap. Twist and snap, and the package will actually release. You can be able to take the tourniquet out of the packaging and get to it very quickly. There's another technique I want to show you. Grab scissors, open the top of the package. This is fine because then you're going to be able to practice with it, and then you can put it back into the packaging for protection and keep it in your glove compartment or one of your first aid kits. So that's just another way to open it. If you have to, and you can't get this open for some reason, always make sure that you have a pair of scissors. That is always handy. You can open up any package, including Israeli bandages, triangular bandages, anything that has a soft package on it and your hands are bloody with gloves on, may be too slippery. So it is handy, but there are a lot of notches on this, so that's very good. There are instructions in the back, however, like we're discussing, the instructions are written on the tourniquet. You will be stretching it, wrapping it, and tucking it. Now, why do I think this is something that you should carry in your medical kit, and also one that I put in some of our lighter weight kits? Well, first of all, it's lightweight. It's super easy to use. Again, I showed you the instructions are on the tourniquet, and it's really small. Some of our bigger tourniquets for the military are actually kind of bulky, and even when you fold it up appropriately, it's still much, much bigger than this. Let's see, this is the folded up one. Then you could see this one is in the package. Another good thing about the tourniquet is that it can be stretched very, very small and also very, very large. But if you look right here, I have literally wrapped this around my pinky. Imagine a very small child or even an infant, a small kid with really skinny arms, even an adult who's really small size. It could be somebody who's a young adult, who's very, very thin, or even an elderly person who is sort of lost some muscle tone and doesn't have the bulk that military sized people have. This is great. And I'm not picking on the cat tourniquet because all of the windlass tourniquets, the ones that have the windlass here, have a limit to how small that is actually going to go. And even if you turn that and turn that, it's not going to make that any smaller. So that is one advantage of the tourniquet, besides just being small and really compact and able to go in like a really tiny kit, or even in your pocket, which is nice, or your glove compartment or your purse. So that's one reason I really like it. The disadvantage I think that most people find is it's not easily deployed with one hand. I'm going to show you how to do it because I've learned a special technique. H&H, who owns SWAT Tourniquet again, they have an instruction sheet that you can print out, and it shows how to do it one-handed with the pictures. They haven't showed a video of it yet that I know of, but they use their teeth. Looks a little funky with me. I'm thinking, if I have blood everywhere, do I really want to put this in my teeth? But then again, I could be bleeding to death, so you're going to have to make that decision. But I'm going to show you a different technique that doesn't utilize your teeth, but can be used with one hand. I want to show you how to put this on one-handed. Take your thumb and put a little bit of a fold right there. Just hold your thumb in place. You can use your fingers to bring the tourniquet around and fold over your thumb. Once you have done one or even two turns, now this material sticks to itself. What happens is this material does not come off, so it will not unwind. It is sticking to itself. And then what you have to do is pull really, really, really tight. And I don't want to do that on myself right now because I will lose my circulation. But you will turn and wrap, and you will be pulling really, really hard. Remember, you want the rectangles to turn into squares or the ovals to turn into circles. When you're finished wrapping, you will take a piece of this material and fold it under, and it's tucked. And you can see that I'm sort of losing circulation if you see the difference in my hands. This is a problem here, but it's not quite tight enough, so I haven't cut off all the circulation. Again, I'm going to show you real quickly. You will take the end of it, use your thumb, bring this around with your fingers, fold it over. You may have to flip it a couple times, that's okay. And then you're going to begin to pull, and you'll see that you've pulled it enough to turn the rectangles into squares. You see that? And then just keep pulling and pulling and twisting and wrapping, and in the end, you tuck it.
Well, here I am, just an innocent bystander, and this nice lady asked me to come here and sit down, and
I don't know who he is.
I don't know what she plans to do, but we'll see.
Well, first I'm going to injure you.
Ow!
You're bleeding.
Oh, no, my goodness.
No, you're bleeding.
I'm bleeding. What are you going to do?
I would actually prefer, I'm going to put a second wound in you. We're going to pretend that one didn't. I'm going to stab you here.
Ow!
Okay, now you're bleeding.
Okay, I'm bleeding from here. I'm
yes,
fine here.
That one didn't start bleeding. Okay. So our injury is on the lower arm.
That's a terrible thing to do to an innocent bystander.
I know, but I want them to really see me putting this on. All right. Ooh. All right. So, two-handed application. This is super easy because we are still stretching, wrapping, and tucking, except now that we have two hands, it's easier. Now, since our injury is here, we don't put it on a joint, so we're going above that. This is so easy. Make sure that it's overlapped. Go ahead and go around like 1.5 times. Once you do the 1.5 times, you see that I can go ahead and pull it. I know I've told you this several times during the video already, but what are we looking for? Oval into circles and rectangle into square. Visually, you will know whether you're pulling tight enough. And I'm not going to do this to this poor stranger that I dragged in because I don't know what kind of person he is.
If you don't pull on it.
I'm gonna pull.
Go ahead and give it a
well,
good pull.
this is how I would
See,
pull.
That's how you have to
but
pull.
I'm not gonna do that.
And it's got to hurt if it's really gonna work.
So if I was pulling,
get rid of your pulse.
this is important. If I was pulling, I would pull close to his arm so I have leverage. If I start back here, I'm pulling so far away. So grab it close to the person, their injury, whether it's arm or leg. I'm sorry, no, I'm really hurting you. I'm gonna loosen that up. Pretend that I went really, really hard. Now, what you can do, and they show this on their videos, the last time you come around, if you want to put your hand in there, you can make the area where you're going to tuck the extra tourniquet in. You see what I did? The last time I went around, I kept my hand in there, and when I came around, I tucked it in. If you forget to do that, don't worry about it, because you will still be able to. I'm going to untuck this. Well, I tucked it really well. All right, so if I forget to put my hand in here and I went around and I said, oh no, it's okay. You can still grab a piece of this material and stick it underneath, because it's stretchy.
You can see that I've lost color here.
Yes, you're turning blue. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, sir.
And you want to check for that pulse. You don't want to pulse beyond the level of the injury.
Thank you for adding that. You know what? You're really smart. Are you a doctor?
No, I'm just a guy who's here for the beer.
Okay. But yes, you do want to look for those two things, blood stopping and the pulse stopping. If you guys watch 10 critical principles of tourniquet use, 10 critical principles of tourniquet use, you will learn all of the things that you need to know before you put tourniquets on, when you're going to take them off, and what you're looking for when you do put them on. All right, so I have showed you the one-handed and putting it on another person, which means I get to use two-handed application. Now let's talk about some other uses for the SWAT tourniquet. It's not just a tourniquet. That's what's really cool about this little item here. It can be used as a pressure dressing. I think a lot of you will recognize the emergency bandage or the Israeli pressure dressing. So that has a pad and it is stretchy, and that is used to hold on gauze or hemostatic gauze that you've placed into a wound. However, if you don't have this, this can do the same thing. Now you're just not going to wrap it as tight. Let's pretend I have a wound here and I've packed hemostatic gauze in there. I can use this with a little bit of pressure. We're not turning it into a tourniquet, but we can put that on over that dressing to hold it in place. And really, you're not putting that tight pressure. Remember I showed you stretching this and moving the ovals into the circles, or moving the rectangles into the squares. You're not going to do that. What you want to make sure is you still have a pulse below where you put it on. We're not trying to cut off bleeding. Another use is to replace an ACE bandage. Again, you've got a same kind of stretchy. If you had an ankle injury or even a knee injury, this would be great to wrap it up. Another thing it replaces, and I just did a video on this, by the way, if you want to see how to use triangular bandages, it can replace a triangular bandage. Aha, how you say? Well, very simple. If you want a sling, you can tie it here if you're putting it on yourself, or you can also tie it behind your neck if you're putting it on somebody. So very super comfortable. You may swing a little bit, so you're going to need to be careful. If you have a second one, if you watch that video, you'll see what we did was we wrapped around the arm here after we put the sling on to prevent movement. And you could also do that if you had a second pressure dressing or a second SWAT tourniquet. So it replaces a triangular bandage, it replaces an Israeli bandage, an ACE. It's also really great to cover dressings. And it's the same kind of principle as the pressure dressing, that you're holding a gauze in, but you're not causing any kind of tension whatsoever. You're putting a little bit of tension on for the pressure dressing, a lot for a tourniquet, but really you're just kind of moving it around if you're holding on to a regular dressing. So there's several things that you can use this for. Another thing that I really like this is because it has the instructions on it. Cat tourniquets come with instructions, which is great, but if I lose this and I forget how to deploy this, hopefully you've practiced. And again, I love this tourniquet. I'm not picking on this tourniquet. It's great. But if for some reason you have forgotten how to use it, there's no instructions written on here. You got to figure it out. You got to remember. So it's important to practice with your tourniquets. It's hard to forget how to use this. Oh, okay. I'm stretching, I'm wrapping, I'm tucking. So another advantage, you have to use your judgment. Best scenario, carry both. Carry a military style tourniquet and carry the SWAT tourniquet. If this one doesn't work, you can always put this one above it. So it's always great to have two. Or if you put this one on and you have your hemostatic gauze, but you use your Israeli bandage somewhere, you can use this as the pressure dressing. So again, multi-use, not a bad idea to have both of them. There was a research study done. Military tourniquets are wonderful. Again, definitely carry both. However, when you place them on, what happens is after you eliminate the blood flow underneath that tissue, there's something called pressure loss. When the tissue decreases because the blood supply is gone, sometimes you can leak under these windlass, and I have several windlass tourniquets. This is just the one I have in my hand, but you can leak underneath. So you start to get a little oozing and a little more blood after about a minute. Usually that's when it occurs. During the research study, they did not have that for almost all of these tourniquets that were put on properly. So this had issues with some bleeding, which meant you either had to retighten it by turning the windlass or you had to put a second tourniquet right above. One thing about the SWAT tourniquet that you will see on the videos if you watch them on H&H is when you need to put a second tourniquet on. Let's say for some reason you didn't put this on tight enough or it just started rebleeding. You're not sure why. They say that you can put another tourniquet on below it, over it, or above it. Now, I would always pick above it because I'm thinking I need to slow the blood down on the other side. I don't want to get too close to the wound. So I'm going not on a joint, but above the wound, 2 to 3 inches. If it's down here, I'm going to be placing it here. I probably won't have a lot of room between the tourniquet and the wound, so I'm going to be putting it above. Again, not on a joint. So you can put a second tourniquet below, over, or above. Whenever you're using a tourniquet, make sure there's nothing under it. If you happen to have to put it over clothing because there's some dangerous thing going on, put it high and tight above the wound without exposing it because you don't have time. And make sure there's nothing in between the tourniquet, the clothing, and the arm. If there is a pair of scissors in a pocket or a phone, let's say someone has a pocket, cargo pants, and you need to put it high and tight on the leg, you need to get the hard material off. It's okay to put it on clothing in that stressful situation that's unsafe, but you don't want to put it with something hard underneath. No tourniquet is going to work if there's something in a pocket or between the clothing and the skin. After you have finished putting on your tourniquet, there is an armband. It's actually a white paper that can be opened up, placed on the wrist of the patient, and you can write the time. There's a place for the heart rate and some other things that you might be checking, a blood pressure, but definitely try to put the time on that. If all else fails and you lost the bracelet or you don't want to put that on, you can write directly on here if you have a Sharpie, if you have to. So it's material and you can write on it, but you should utilize the bracelet. It's really important to mark the time of when a tourniquet is put on because you're going to have to pass that patient off to someone else. This is Nurse Amy. Thank you for listening and discussing SWAT tourniquets. Let me know in the comments section what you think about these and if you've ever practiced with them. Anyway, thank you for watching our video. I really appreciate it.
This is a tip of the hat.
Is Dr. Bones and Nurse Amy. We appreciate you watching. Thank you.
Hey, don't forget to fill those holes in your medical storage by checking out Nurse Amy's entire line of medical kits, books, and more at store.doomandbloom.net. That's store.doomandbloom.net. You'll be glad you did.